Warner Brothers stood on the precipice of financial ruin in 1927, drowning in over $1 million of debt while competitors thrived. The studio's desperate gamble on an untested technology called Vitaphone would either resurrect their fortunes or deliver the final blow to their crumbling empire. The Jazz Singer represented more than just another film production. It was a technological Hail Mary wrapped in entertainment. While other studios dismissed synchronized sound as an expensive novelty, the Warner Brothers mortgaged their future on this revolutionary concept. The Vitaphone system required massive investments in new equipment, specialized theaters, and technical expertise that stretched their already thin resources to the breaking point. When Al Jolson uttered those immortal words, wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet," on October 6, 1927, he wasn't just addressing his on-screen audience. He was announcing the dawn of a new cinematic era. The film's hybrid approach, blending silent sequences with synchronized musical numbers and dialogue, created an unprecedented movie-going experience that captivated audiences nationwide. The box office response was nothing short of miraculous. The Jazz Singer generated over $3.5 million worldwide, transforming Warner Brothers from industry underdog to technological pioneer overnight. These profits didn't just pay off crushing debts, they funded the studio's aggressive expansion into full sound production, giving them a crucial head start over competitors scrambling to catch up. The aftermath proved even more transformative than the initial success. Within 2 years, silent films had virtually disappeared from major theaters as the entire industry raced to adopt sound technology. Warner Brothers, once fighting for survival, now commanded respect as the studio that played a leading role in ushering cinema into its modern age, proving that sometimes the biggest risks yield the most revolutionary rewards. Walt Disney's colleagues whispered behind closed doors that his latest obsession would bankrupt the studio, a full-length animated feature that industry veterans dismissed as commercial folly. Critics dubbed the project Disney's Folly, convinced that audiences would never sit through 90 minutes of cartoon characters when live-action films dominate theaters. The financial stakes couldn't have been higher. Disney had already exhausted the studio's reserves developing the revolutionary multiplane camera, a complex contraption using multiple layers, sometimes up to a dozen, for a single scene. When traditional funding sources dried up, he made the ultimate sacrifice, mortgaging his own home to keep production rolling. His animators worked punishing schedules, some literally sleeping at their desks as deadlines loomed and money dwindled. Technical innovations pushed costs beyond all reasonable limits. The multiplane camera alone represented a massive gamble, creating unprecedented depth and realism that had never been attempted in animation. Each frame demanded meticulous attention to detail, with Disney personally reviewing thousands of drawings while, according to some accounts, his health deteriorated under the mounting pressure. Snow White's December 21, 1937 premiere silenced most skeptics in Hollywood. The film earned over $8 million during the depths of the Great Depression, becoming the highest-grossing film up to that time. These astronomical profits didn't just validate Disney's vision, they funded the construction of the state-of-the-art Burbank studio complex, transforming a struggling animation house into an entertainment empire. The cultural impact extended far beyond box office receipts. Snow White established animation as a legitimate art form capable of sophisticated storytelling, emotional depth, and technical brilliance. The film's triumph created the template for every Disney classic that followed, proving that animated features could compete with any Hollywood production and setting the stage for animation's evolution into a dominant entertainment medium. RKO Pictures teetered on the edge of collapse in 1932, hemorrhaging money as the Great Depression strangled theater attendance and studio revenues plummeted to catastrophic lows. The company's board of directors faced an impossible choice: declare bankruptcy or stake everything on an audacious monster movie that most executives considered pure madness. King Kong represented the ultimate high-stakes gamble, demanding unprecedented special effects budgets when every dollar counted. Willis O'Brien's revolutionary stop-motion animation required painstaking frame-by-frame work, with each second of screen time consuming hours of meticulous model manipulation. Cooper later reflected that the studio was gambling everything on Kong, and if it failed, RKO might not survive the year. The production team operated under crushing financial constraints that sparked remarkable creativity. To save money, they repurposed the jungle set from The Most Dangerous Game, rushing both films simultaneously with shared props and even the same leading man, Bruce Cabot. According to some accounts, director Cooper employed extreme methods to achieve the film's visceral impact, once accidentally setting Fay Wray's dress ablaze while firing pistols behind her to elicit genuine screams. When King Kong thundered into theaters on March 2, 1933, audiences had never witnessed anything comparable. The 18-inch stop-motion armature, rediscovered at a Los Angeles estate sale in 2009, brought the giant ape to terrifying life through O'Brien's masterful animation. The film generated over $4 million worldwide through its initial release and subsequent reissues, instantly stabilizing RKO's precarious finances and proving that spectacular effects could drive massive box office returns. The monster's cultural impact extended far beyond immediate profits. King Kong established the template for creature features, launched countless imitators, and demonstrated that audiences craved escapist spectacle during economic hardship. The film's success transformed RKO from a struggling also-ran into a major creative force, funding ambitious projects throughout the 1930s and cementing the studio's reputation for innovative filmmaking that pushed technical boundaries. By 1938, David O. Selznick's independent studio was drowning in debt, with creditors circling as Selznick International Pictures teetered on the edge of collapse. Selznick risked everything, his reputation, assets, and personal relationships to fund Gone with the Wind, an epic Civil War romance many insiders saw as commercial suicide. The film's $4 million budget was astronomical for the era, forcing Selznick to mortgage his Beverly Hills mansion and borrow against future earnings. Lavish sets, hundreds of extras, and elaborate sequences like the burning of Atlanta pushed costs ever higher, especially as Selznick's perfectionism led to repeated reshoots and mounting delays. The exhaustive search for Scarlett O'Hara consumed months and significant resources, with over 1,500 actresses tested before Vivien Leigh's last-minute casting. Production delays grew as Selznick juggled rewrites, elaborate costumes, and the technical challenges, stretching the budget beyond all reasonable limits. When Gone with the Wind premiered on December 15, 1939, it shattered box office records, earning over $200 million worldwide and holding the title of highest-grossing film for over 2 decades. The profits rescued Selznick International Pictures and elevated Selznick to Hollywood royalty, granting him creative freedom few enjoyed. The windfall allowed Selznick to pay off all creditors and establish himself as the industry's premier prestige producer, yet his perfectionism and extravagant spending proved unsustainable. Despite the film's massive success, Selznick International Pictures ceased active production by the mid-1940s, showing that even spectacular triumphs couldn't guarantee long-term stability in Hollywood. By 1930, Universal Pictures was hemorrhaging cash as audiences rejected a string of uninspired melodramas and costly musical flops, pushing the studio to the brink of bankruptcy. Desperate for a lifeline, Universal gambled on Dracula, a gothic horror adaptation that some executives doubted would appeal to Depression-era audiences already burdened by real-world fears. The film's modest budget forced director Todd Browning to repurpose sets from The Phantom of the Opera and rely on atmospheric lighting and creative camera work to mask financial constraints. Bela Lugosi's casting was controversial. His thick accent and theatrical style made executives nervous about whether American audiences would accept such an unconventional lead. Though Lugosi had played Dracula on Broadway, some doubted his stage success would translate to film. When Dracula premiered in New York on February 12, 1931, and opened nationwide 2 days later, it became a box office sensation. The film earned over $700,000 during its initial release, generating profits that immediately stabilized Universal's finances and proved horror could captivate mainstream audiences even in hard times. This unexpected triumph launched Universal's legendary Monsters franchise, with Frankenstein following later that year and establishing a profitable formula that sustained the studio through the 1930s. Dracula transformed Universal from a bankruptcy candidate into the master of screen terror, creating a genre that continues to generate revenue nearly a century later through remakes, reboots, and lucrative merchandising. By January 1933, Paramount Pictures had entered receivership and filed for bankruptcy just 2 months later, as the Great Depression threatened to liquidate one of Hollywood's founding studios. Creditors circled, and every production became a desperate gamble that could either save or sink the company. Mae West's adaptation of her Broadway hit Diamond Lil, retitled She Done Him Wrong, emerged as Paramount's last-ditch rescue attempt. Bankruptcy trustees initially tried shelving the film, fearing its scandalous content would hurt the studio's sale value. West reportedly threatened to buy the negative herself and release it independently, forcing executives to reconsider. During the 18-day shoot, West rewrote scenes daily, improvising double entendres that skirted censorship and delivered the subversive entertainment Depression-era audiences craved. When director Lowell Sherman objected to her now iconic line, "Why don't you come up sometime and see me?" West confidently replied, "Honey, the audience will eat it like ice cream," and proved it with a single-take delivery. West's unapologetic sexuality and wit drew massive crowds seeking escapism during America's darkest hour. Her character's brazen confidence offered a fantasy of empowerment when most Americans felt powerless. She Done Him Wrong generated over $2 million in profits within months, providing Paramount with the crucial cash infusion that delayed liquidation. Executive Emmanuel Cohen later said, "Mae West's salary was $5,000 a week, but she brought in $2.3 million in profits when we were drowning in red ink." This triumph established West as Hollywood's highest-paid female star and proved that controversy could be commercial salvation, even as it hastened the 1934 Production Code crackdown. By 1939, United Artists was drowning in red ink, its prestige reputation crumbling as financial instability threatened to dissolve the independent studio founded by Hollywood's biggest stars. Desperate for a commercial breakthrough, the company faced fierce competition from major studios crushing smaller rivals through sheer economic force. John Ford, seeking to revive his career after a string of less successful projects, took a major risk by adapting Ernest Haycock's The Stage to Lordsburg into a Western, a genre widely considered dead and relegated to cheap matinees. Casting John Wayne as the Ringo Kid raised further doubts, as Wayne had spent nearly a decade in low-budget films that showcased little beyond his physical presence. Ford's insistence on shooting in Monument Valley required expensive location work, stretching United Artists' strained resources, while the ensemble cast demanded careful coordination that risked costly delays. Stagecoach revolutionized Western storytelling with Ford's innovative character development and visual style, transforming a simple frontier tale into a sophisticated exploration of American social dynamics. The film's dynamic action and sweeping cinematography elevated the genre from cheap entertainment to legitimate art, while Wayne's magnetic performance established him as Hollywood's newest leading man. Audiences embraced Stagecoach with overwhelming enthusiasm, generating massive profits that stabilized United Artists' finances and launched a Western renaissance dominating the 1940s. Ford's masterpiece didn't just rescue a struggling studio, it redefined the Western and set the template for a psychological depth in the genre, proving that artistic vision and commercial success could ride together across Hollywood's unforgiving landscape. By 1958, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer teetered on the edge of financial ruin, its golden age glory fading under mounting debts and costly flops. Without a massive hit, MGM risked joining the ranks of defunct studios. Ben-Hur became the studio's ultimate gamble, demanding a staggering $15 million budget, unprecedented in cinema history. Executives bet the company on a 3.5-hour religious epic starring Charlton Heston, a respected but not bankable lead. The production required 18 massive sets across 65 acres in Rome, over 10,000 extras, and the most elaborate chariot race ever filmed. Director William Wyler's perfectionism pushed costs even higher. The legendary chariot sequence alone took 3 months to film, with a full-scale Circus Maximus replica built for authentic racing action. Some at MGM quietly doubted whether audiences would embrace such an old-fashioned biblical epic in an era of contemporary dramas and musicals. When Ben-Hur premiered on November 18, 1959, it became a cultural phenomenon, earning over $74 million in the United States and Canada and shattering box office records. Critics showered it with praise, and its historic sweep of 11 Academy Awards transformed MGM from bankruptcy candidate to industry leader overnight. The film's windfall didn't just save MGM, it sparked a renaissance of epic filmmaking that dominated the 1960s. Studios across Hollywood rushed to create their own spectacular productions, launching an era of blockbuster historical dramas that redefined event cinema and set the template for modern Hollywood spectacles. By 1959, Universal Pictures was in dire financial straits after a series of costly failures, desperately needing a prestige project to restore its reputation and bank accounts. Few expected salvation to come wrapped in controversy. Kirk Douglas took control of Spartacus with fierce determination, insisting on hiring blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo despite industry-wide opposition. Trumbo initially worked under a pseudonym, smuggling script pages through intermediaries while Douglas secretly planned to break Hollywood's ban on communist sympathizers. Douglas risked his career by demanding Trumbo receive full screen credit, alarming studio executives who feared public backlash. The $12 million production stretched Universal's resources to the limit, with massive battle scenes, elaborate Roman sets, and a cast of thousands. Director Stanley Kubrick clashed with Douglas over creative control, while the film's epic scope demanded months of costly filming. When Spartacus premiered on October 6, 1960, it conquered critics and audiences alike, earning over $60 million worldwide. The film's success transformed Universal from a struggling studio into a major player, while Douglas's stand against the blacklist won praise from industry progressives. President John F. Kennedy's public attendance at a screening is often seen as a symbolic blow to the blacklist, though its end was gradual. Spartacus didn't just rescue Universal's finances, it established the studio as a home for serious, adult-oriented films, and proved that moral courage could coexist with commercial success in an industry often criticized for playing it safe. By 1964, 20th Century Fox was teetering on collapse, still reeling from Cleopatra's disastrous budget overruns that nearly wiped out the studio's operating capital. Once an industry powerhouse, Fox had become Hollywood's most precarious major studio, desperately seeking a commercial miracle to stave off financial ruin. The Sound of Music became Fox's final gamble, a Rodgers and Hammerstein adaptation approached with cautious optimism, especially after recent musical flops. Director Robert Wise inherited a project that demanded strict budget control while delivering the kind of spectacle needed to lure audiences away from television's growing appeal. Julie Andrews, fresh from her Mary Poppins success, brought star power but also risk for a studio that couldn't afford another costly misstep. Filming in Austria required significant overseas investment, and the elaborate musical numbers stretched Fox's remaining resources to their limits. Christopher Plummer, initially dismissive of the project, nonetheless provided the romantic chemistry with Andrews that anchored the film. The 7 child actors playing the Von Trapps required extensive coaching, threatening to derail the tight schedule. When The Sound of Music premiered in March 1965, it became a global sensation, shattering box office records and earning over $286 million worldwide. The film's profits were instrumental in rescuing Fox from bankruptcy and set new standards for musical entertainment. This remarkable success didn't just save a studio, it created a cultural touchstone that continues to generate revenue through re-releases, broadcasts, and home video sales, proving that sometimes the sweetest melodies emerge from the most desperate circumstances. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.